Hi TVC kids, happy Sunday to you. I'm so glad to see you again. I wanted to start with our parable. So 2 weeks ago we started our unit with the parable of the sower, right? And we said the seed is the Word of God, and we talked about how to get that into our lives. Then last week we talked about house built on rock or sand. Which one do we want it on? Definitely the rock, and the rock is Jesus, right? And we talked about all those foundations that help us grow in Jesus. Now this one we're going to do today is a little bit different. It's called the Prodigal Son, and it's different and it shows you what happens when we do some things wrong, how Jesus is there for us. Are you ready to hear the story? All right, I'm going to read it out of this fun little book again. All right. There was a man with 2 sons. The younger son said to his father, "Father, I'd like my share of all the property. Will you give it to me?" So in some versions it says the inheritance. Do you guys know what that means? So for Mr. Chris and I, we have a house, and when we pass away and are up in heaven praising God, Isabel and Isaiah will get our house, right? That's our inheritance that we're going to leave for them. So this son, his father was still alive, and he's like, "Wait, I want all that now. I want that money now." Okay. Maybe a little greedy? Let's see what he says. "Will you give it to me?" So the father divided the estate between his 2 sons, gave half to the older son, half to this son, and he went off. Shortly after that, the young son turned his share into cash, and he went off to a distant land where he soon spent it on wild and reckless living. So that means he threw parties, he had friends, he bought things, all kinds of stuff that wasn't really responsible to do, right? But he spent all that money. Now his father had worked his life to earn that so that he had something, a gift that he could give his son. And his son went out and he wasted it. A severe famine came over the land. And when the young man was desperate and he had need, so he spent all that money. He had a lot of friends because he was spending money. Guess what happened after that? Do you think those friends stayed with him when he was poor and didn't have any money? No, they didn't. Were those real friends? Not so much. But he went out, he lost his friends, he lost all his money, he'd wasted it, and a famine came in the land, which meant there was no food for people to eat, and so people were looking for jobs desperately, and he's like, "I have no money, I've got to find a job." He went out, he looked here, he looked there. Guess where he ended up? He worked for a farmer taking care of pigs. Let's see how it says it. So he went and attached himself to a local landowner who sent him into the fields to tend the pigs. The young man would have gladly eaten the husk that the pigs were eating, as no one gave him anything to eat. So here he is. He, once had a nice life, right? He's now taking care of pigs, which that's cool. It's good to be a farmer, right? But he didn't even have any food to eat. So all of a sudden, they would throw the pig food in the pen, and he would look at the husk of corn, not the good corn, the husk, and go, "That looks good, I'll eat that." Think about how he looked. Do you think he smelled good? Do you think he was having a lot of fun living with the pigs and eating pig food? Not so much. It was a big difference for this guy. All right, so the young son, but suddenly, as he's sitting in that pig farm, he came to his senses. "My father has hired servants that have more to eat than I do, and I'm sitting here starving to death." So when he lived with his father took good care of his servants, right? They had a place to live, they had food, they were well taken care of. He's like, "My father's servants are doing better than I am." So here's what he decided to do. "I will go back to my father and say to him, 'Father, I have sinned against God and against you. I'm no longer worthy to be called your son. Treat me as one of your paid servants. Please just at least treat me like your servant.' So he started home to his father's house. While he was still a ways off, his father saw him coming, and he was so happy that he ran to meet him, and he threw his arms around his son, and he kissed him, and he hugged him. He was so happy. Is that what the son expected? Maybe not. The young man said, "Father, I've sinned against God." He's sinned against God, and I've sinned against you. I no longer am worthy to be called your son. But Father, please, can I be one of your servants? And the father sent one of the servants away. He said, "Go get the best best robe you could find, and put a ring on my son's finger and shoes on his feet, and bring in the calf so we could have a feast today. My son, this is what the father said, my son was dead, and now he's come back. He was lost, and now he is found. Let the celebration begin. What do you think of that? That young son went out, he wasted everything, he was living with the pigs. He was like, please, if I could just live like a servant, it'll be okay. And his father said, no way. I love you. My arms are open wide. I'm going to come and I'm going to hug you and I'll put a great robe on you and a ring on your finger and shoes on your feet, and we're going to celebrate. Now the older son, who had been out in the fields, came in near the house and he heard all the music and dancing. He called to one of the servants and asked, what's going on? The servant answered, your brother has come home and your father has had the fattened calf cooked, and now he is safe and sound, and this is the celebration. The older brother was a little angry and refused to go to the party. The father came out and pleaded with the young man to join the celebration. I have slaved, this is the older brother, I've slaved for you all these years. I have never disobeyed you, yet you've never given me a feast like this. But my brother comes home after spending all his money on wild and reckless things, and you throw a celebration for him? My son, the father said, you are always with me and everything I have is yours. But how can we help but celebrate this day? For your brother was dead and now he's alive. He was lost and now he was found. So he wasn't physically dead, right? But he was away, he had lost everything. He had left his father's house, so it was like he was gone forever. And the father was so excited that he came back. He threw a celebration. Now, what is this parable telling us, right? Let's take a look. So if you looked on your email or on thevillagechapel.com, I'm sending your little journal pages home. And this first one says, The Prodigal Son. And so I blew this up to our TVC at home wall. Here's what your sheet's gonna look like. And so what you're gonna do is draw like a comic strip, okay? So you're gonna tell the prodigal son story, and then we're gonna see what it means by our story. So we're gonna start with the prodigal son, draw a picture of him home with all he needed. Everything, his dad took good care of him. He had everything he needed. Second picture, he's greedy and he leaves, all right? Draw a picture of him leaving, taking everything with him that his father gave him, right? Then down on the bottom of that page, he loses everything. Where does he end up? That's right, with the pigs. In the smelly pig pen, eating the pig's food, which is waste and trash, right? Okay, he's eating the pig's food. And then draw when his father welcomes him home. This is such an awesome scene. Thinking about that father running to him, not just him coming home and saying, if I could just be your servant. He says, no, you're my son. I welcome you and I'm gonna throw a celebration. All right, so that's the prodigal son story. Now, let's look at your story and my story, right? So that's gonna be on the second page that you receive. So here we are. We draw you at home with everything you need. You know what? Because we are blessed and we do have all we need. All right, so draw a picture of your family, your home. We're doing everything that you guys like to do. Now, what if we acted like that prodigal son and we were greedy? Draw some of the things that you're greedy with. Is it stuff? Is it toys? Is it books? Is it time? Are you ever greedy with time, like your mom's time, or your dad's time, even your sisters or brothers? Think about what you're greedy with and draw that there. Then when we come back down to the bottom, what do I lose when I'm greedy? What happens when you're greedy? Do you lose friendship sometime? Do you lose respect of your sisters or brothers, maybe? Think about what you lose. Now, you're not going to probably end up in a pig pen, but think about what happens when you're greedy. What happens to God's heart when you're greedy? Does he like that? Does that make him go, way to go, you were greedy? No. All right, think about all the things we've learned about loving others and serving others. When we're greedy, we're not doing that. All right? But then at the bottom, what is my reward when I return to God? All right? Have you ever done something wrong and then you just prayed and asked God to forgive you? Just like the prodigal son, he came home, he wasted everything. And he said, I've sinned against God. I've sinned against you, Father. And the father said, I love you. Welcome back. Let me throw a celebration for you. Guess what? Same thing happens for us. All of us have been in this square. All of us have been greedy. All of us have sinned. But the part of this parable that's just so beautiful is all of us can get to this square too, where God says, welcome back. I've been waiting for you. I just wanted to know that you can turn your heart back to me. All right? He gives us all those foundations we talked about last week. He shows us the Word of God. Those things all help us build strong. But when we do fall, when we do sin against him, he's there, arms open wide, saying, run back to me. Run back to me. That's the good news. That's the great story. And I love this parable because this is a hard time we're in right now. And sometimes we're going to do some stuff wrong. But pray. Ask God to forgive you. Ask the person you sinned against to forgive you. And know that Jesus is there with his arms open wide, ready to receive you. I love this parable. I love you guys. I hope you have a wonderful Sunday. I hope you'll keep watching us on Instagram and Facebook, tvckidsnashville.com. We'll be doing a whole nother run of stories this week. I've got some of my favorites actually coming up. And then also on Wednesday, come dance with us. I'll be reading a story about Jonah on Monday, and then on Wednesday we're going to dance to a story about Jonah. So I hope you'll check in with me, and it's my way of just being able to give you a little virtual hug and tell you I love you. So I'll see you this week. Have a great Sunday. Bye.